Imagine a car that never stops to charge, a car that fuels itself while in motion. Now, picture that same vehicle, born in Africa, daring to take on one of the toughest challenges on Earth, a coast-to-coast race across the United States. This isn't science fiction. It's happening right now. For years, Africa's innovators were underestimated, until one groundbreaking invention shattered expectations: the self-charging electric car. Designed with technology that defies conventional EV limits, this car promises something Tesla, Toyota, and every major automaker has been chasing: limitless range. No charging stations. No waiting hours for batteries to refill. Just continuous, unstoppable motion. But bold claims mean nothing without proof. That's why the creators set their sights on the ultimate test: driving from the Atlantic to the Pacific, coast to coast across America. It's a challenge that pushes not only machines but human ambition to the limit. Desert heat, mountain climbs, endless highways, and millions of eyes watching. Will Africa's self-powered EV survive the journey? Or will it fail under the pressure of American roads? This isn't just about one car. It's about a global shift. If an African-made, self-charging vehicle can conquer the U.S. highways without ever plugging in, the world's entire energy and automotive industries could be forced to rethink their future. Oil companies, charging networks, even governments, nothing would remain the same. And as this historic coast-to-coast race unfolds, it raises a powerful question. Are we witnessing the end of range anxiety forever? From Harare to Silicon Valley, from Lagos to Detroit, the ripple effects of this challenge are being felt everywhere. It's no longer a battle of brands. It's a battle of ideas. Can Africa's innovation not only compete, but dominate on the world stage? One car, one mission, one race that could change the future of mobility forever. Will Africa's self-powered EV rewrite history on America's roads? Stay with us as we follow this groundbreaking journey and discover if the impossible has finally become reality. The race began on the East Coast, under the early morning sun, as cameras and reporters gathered around the futuristic vehicle. To most Americans, it looked like just another sleek electric car, but what lay hidden under its hood was a technological leap that could unsettle the world's most powerful industries. With no charging ports and no need for gas stations, it was a car that challenged the very infrastructure of the United States. Every mile it traveled was not just a demonstration of engineering. It was a statement of independence from the world's reliance on fossil fuels and charging grids. As the journey unfolded, skeptics followed closely. Energy analysts, automotive engineers, and even oil lobbyists scoffed at the idea, predicting it wouldn't last past the first 1,000 miles. But to their astonishment, the car pressed forward, through the crowded streets of New York, across the Appalachian Mountains, and deep into the Midwest plains, without ever stopping for a recharge. Its endurance began to spark conversations across news networks. Was this the breakthrough the automotive industry had been fearing? By the time the vehicle entered the vast deserts of the Southwest, the race had evolved into something larger than a technological showcase. Crowds gathered at highways just to witness its passage. Families waved, drivers honked, and social media erupted with videos of the self-powered car cruising effortlessly past charging stations where other EVs waited in line. What was once seen as an experimental African project had now captured the imagination of ordinary Americans, turning highways into arenas of history in the making. Yet, the challenge was far from over. Ahead lay punishing heat, mountainous climbs, and thousands of miles of open road. Engineers trailing the vehicle monitored every detail, ready for the slightest sign of failure. The suspense grew as critics searched desperately for proof of hidden charging or secret fuel. But the car kept moving, steady, relentless, almost defiant. And as it edged closer to the Pacific coast, one thing became clear. This was no longer just Africa's story. It was the world's. The closer the car drew to the west, the more intense the attention became. Television helicopters hovered above highways, broadcasting live updates. News anchors debated its implications every night, some calling it a publicity stunt, others declaring it the end of big oil. Meanwhile, car enthusiasts, engineers, and everyday citizens began chasing the vehicle in caravans, documenting each mile on their phones. It was no longer just a test drive. It had become a cultural phenomenon. through Nevada's unforgiving desert stretches. The car faced temperatures soaring above 100 degrees. Conventional EVs often struggled in such extremes, their batteries draining faster under strain. But this self-powered machine kept its steady pace, as if the sun and heat were irrelevant. Engineers riding behind monitored their instruments nervously, yet mile after mile, the data told the same story. No external charging, no hidden power source, just continuous self-sustaining energy. Skeptics who had predicted its failure at this stage were forced into silence. By the time the car approached California's Sierra Nevada mountains, anticipation reached fever pitch. The steep inclines were known to drain even the most advanced electric vehicles, often forcing drivers to plan charging stops carefully. Reporters gathered at rest stops along the highway, waiting to catch a moment of weakness. Instead, what they saw stunned them. The African-built car ascended the mountain roads with the same unshakable momentum it had shown since the beginning of the race. Its quiet hum was almost symbolic, like a whisper of the future overtaking the roaring past. Meanwhile, in boardrooms across America, panic began to spread. Auto executives, oil magnates, and energy policymakers watched in disbelief. If this vehicle reached the Pacific without ever stopping to recharge, it would expose decades of limitations in their own technology. Whispers of partnerships, buyouts, and even attempts to suppress the innovation began circulating. The car was no longer just a challenger on the road. It had become a threat to billion-dollar industries. Yet, for the crowds lining the highways, none of that mattered. They weren't thinking about oil profits or corporate fear. They were thinking about possibility. Parents pointed the car as it sped past and told their children, "That's the future." And for the first time, many Americans began to see Africa not as a follower in technology, but as a leader blazing a trail others might soon follow. Inside the vehicle, the driver remained calm, eyes fixed on the road ahead. The car hummed steadily, unfazed by the chaos surrounding it. And as the Golden Gate Bridge loomed in the distance, glowing in the California sun, the world seemed to hold its collective breath, waiting to see what would happen next. As the Golden Gate Bridge came into view, a roar erupted from the crowds gathered on both sides of the road. Thousands had poured onto sidewalks, lookout points, and even rooftops, their voices rising like a wave that seemed to carry the car forward. The iconic red towers shimmered in the afternoon light, casting long shadows across the bay. It wasn't just a bridge anymore. It was a stage, and the self-powered African car was the star of a global performance. Police had shut down lanes to allow the vehicle safe passage, but even with barricades, the sheer mass of spectators made the crossing feel more like a festival than a security operation. Helicopters hovered above, filming the car as it rolled onto the bridge's steel deck. Below, boats and yachts clustered in the water, their horns blasting in unison as if to welcome the revolution. The hum of the car echoed faintly against the metal structure, almost drowned out by the cheers and chants rising from the people. Reporters, packed shoulder to shoulder, spoke breathlessly into their microphones. "This is unprecedented," one exclaimed. "We are witnessing a moment that could redefine the automotive world live, right here on the Golden Gate Bridge." Camera flashes sparkled like stars against the setting sun, and social media feeds overflowed with hashtags. Hashtag Africa drives the future. Hashtag self-powered revolution. Hashtag end of charging. Inside boardrooms across the globe, the images were received with dread and amazement. Oil futures dipped sharply as traders scrambled to adjust. In Detroit, executives watched with silent, grim faces. In Beijing, engineers paused their own projects to stare at the live broadcast. And in Africa, entire communities gathered around televisions and radios, pride swelling in their hearts. For them, this wasn't just a car. It was proof that their continent could lead, inspire, and redefine the global stage. But even as the car neared the halfway point of the bridge, drama unfolded. A group of protesters, somehow slipping past security, unfurled massive banners over the railing. Fake tech, false hope. Their chants were met with boos and jeers from the crowd. Police rushed to intervene, but the spectacle momentarily rattled the atmosphere. For a heartbeat, it seemed the noise of division might overshadow the triumph. Yet the car rolled on, steady and unbothered, as though determined to let its motion speak louder than any argument. The driver's hands tightened slightly on the wheel, eyes locked forward. Beyond the bridge stretched the final stretch of California's coastline, the last leg of the journey that had already captured the imagination of millions. The Pacific shimmered in the distance, waves glittering under the fading light. And still, the question burned hotter than ever. What would happen when those wheels finally touched the ocean's edge? The Golden Gate trembled beneath the weight of history being written. As the car crossed its midpoint, the roar of the crowd swelled louder than the crashing waves below. The driver could see flashes of camera lights bouncing off the windshield, turning the bridge into a corridor of brilliance. For many watching, this was no longer just a technological demonstration. It was a procession, almost ceremonial, a symbolic crossing from doubt into undeniable proof. Journalists scrambled to capture every detail. They zoomed in on the tires, the undercarriage, even the faint shadows beneath the car, hoping to catch some hidden mechanism. But frame after frame, there was nothing out of the ordinary. The car remained exactly as it had been since leaving the East Coast, sleek, silent, and relentless. For engineers glued to their monitors, the data was even more astounding. 0 recharging events, 0 interruptions, and 0 evidence of external energy input. On the sidelines, some spectators began to cry openly, overwhelmed by the significance of what they were witnessing. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, waving homemade flags with African symbols alongside American stars and stripes. The fusion of cultures painted a powerful image. Innovation knew no borders, and leadership in technology was no longer bound to traditional powerhouses. But not everyone celebrated. Further down the bridge, a coordinated protest erupted. Vehicles attempted to block the lanes ahead, their drivers waving signs that read "Fraud on Wheels" and "Protect American Industry." Police sirens wailed as officers rushed to intervene, pulling the protest cars aside one by one. For a tense few minutes, the convoys slowed, the air heavy with uncertainty. Would the journey be stalled here, within sight of its destination? Yet, the self-powered car crept forward, inch by inch, refusing to stop. The crowd's chanting grew louder, drowning out the protesters. "Let it pass! Let it pass!" The sound reverberated across the bridge, echoing to the steel beams like the heartbeat of a movement that could not be silenced. Finally, the barricade cleared, and the vehicle surged ahead once more. As it rolled off the far end of the bridge, the Pacific coast stretched out before it. Vast, gleaming, endless. The journey's final chapter was about to begin. Reporters shouted into their microphones. Analysts rushed to update their coverage. And the world held its breath. The last stretch of highway toward the Pacific was lined with people as far as the eye could see. Some waved flags. Others held signs of support. And many simply stood in silence, their phones raised, desperate to capture the final moment of the journey that had already reshaped history. Helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting live to billions across the globe. The air was electric with anticipation. As the car rolled forward, its sleek body gleaming under the golden California sun, a hush seemed to fall over the crowd. Every sound, the hum of its motor, the crash of waves in the distance, the cries of seagulls above, seemed magnified. And then, with steady precision, the self-powered African car reached the edge of the Pacific Ocean. The driver brought it to a gentle stop, its tires resting on the sandy verge where land met sea. For the engineers, it was vindication. For Africa, it was triumph. And for the world, it was a wake-up call. The self-powered car had crossed an entire continent without one stopping to recharge, a feat no other vehicle on Earth had achieved. It wasn't just a victory for technology. It was a statement of possibility, proof that innovation could rise from unexpected places and change the global balance of power. In boardrooms across America, Europe, and Asia, the shock waves were immediate. Oil prices tumbled. Some saw it as a threat, others as an opportunity. But no one could deny the truth. The future had just arrived, and it came from Africa. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the Pacific, the driver stepped out, raising a hand to the cheering crowd. Cameras captured the moment, sealing it forever in history books and digital archives. This was more than the end of a coast-to-coast challenge. It was the beginning of a new era. The car had not just crossed America. It had crossed into the future.